Okay, picture this. You finally decided to find out what your friends have been screaming about for 8 years. You make tea, fire up season 1. And an hour later your brain is melting from the sheer number of bearded men, unpronounceable names, and the constant question, wait, whose son is this? Is that guy a Lannister or a Stark? Why does everyone have the same hair color? And why is there so much wine? Welcome to Game of Thrones, the show where they promise that everyone can die, and then they give the crown to the kid with the best story. It's a show about dragons, ice zombies, and a chair made of swords that nobody ever sits on comfortably. It's also a show about terrible decision making. Seriously, 90% of the plot could be avoided if someone just said, let's talk about this. This is the full, insane, sarcastic, extended recap of everything that happened, minus all the boring politics and with maximum jokes. Spoilers. There are as many spoilers as there are deaths at the Red Wedding. Let's go. It all starts in a frozen place called Winterfell. This is where the Stark family lives. Dad Ned, played by Sean Bean, so you know right away, he's doomed, his wife Catelyn, and their kids. The Starks are the good guys. You can tell because their clothes are dark and they look miserable. The kids, Robb, the eldest, a serious guy with terrible taste in brides and a tendency to betray marriage pacts. Sansa, a naive idiot who dreams of a prince on a white horse and loves lemon cakes. She will learn the hard way. Arya, a tomboy who wants to stab everyone and practice sword fighting. She's the cool one. Bran, a climber who loves peeping on people. Spoiler, it does not end well for his legs. Rickon, another one, so irrelevant that he's often forgotten, even in short recaps. Seriously, he runs in a straight line and gets an arrow in the back. That's his entire arc. Ned is best friends with King Robert Baratheon. Robert is a fat drunk who's been ruling for 17 years and has a permanent headache from his terrible marriage to Cersei Lannister. He visits Ned to ask him to become Hand of the King, basically the top advisor. Ned doesn't want to, but duty calls. He takes his daughters, Sansa and Arya, and heads to the capital, King's Landing, which smells like sewage and betrayal. Meanwhile, little Bran accidentally catches Queen Cersei, Robert's wife, getting cozy with her twin brother. Jaime, to keep the secret, simply shoves the kid out of a window. Bran survives, but is paralyzed. What a great start, right? Cersei's first lesson. Test is fine, but witnesses are not. In King's Landing, Ned quickly realizes that politics isn't his thing. Everyone lies, schemes, and little Prince Joffrey, a sadistic blonde brat, is such a monster that you want to slap him through the screen. Ned discovers a shocking truth. Joffrey and his siblings aren't King Robert's children. They're the product of Cersei and Jaime's incest. They have no royal blood, so the throne isn't theirs. And what does Ned do? Instead of quietly gathering evidence and striking, he goes and tells Cersei everything. I'll give you time to leave, he says. Cersei doesn't leave. King Robert dies on a hunting trip. A boar impales him because Cersei got him super drunk. And the little bastard Joffrey sits on the throne. Ned is arrested, and his older daughter Sansa begs for mercy. But Joffrey, known for his diplomacy, just chops off Ned's head in front of his own daughters. First lesson of Game of Thrones. Being a good guy is a terrible idea. You'll just die. After Ned's death, his eldest son Robb raises the Northern Army and marches for independence. He's a brilliant commander, wins battle after battle, and even captures Jaime Lannister. Everything's going great. But Robb has one problem. He falls in love with a nurse from a backwater town named Talisa, or Jane in the books, forgetting his promise to marry the daughter of powerful Lord Walder Frey. Never break a promise to a creepy old man with many daughters and a grudge. Meanwhile, fighting for the throne, Stannis Baratheon, Robert's older brother, a stern, humorless man with a priestess named Melisandre who gives birth to a shadow assassin to kill his rivals. He's the rightful heir, but nobody likes him because he's boring. Renly Baratheon, the younger, charming brother who gets assassinated by the shadow baby Oops. Balon Greyjoy, a squid-loving idiot who declares himself king of the Iron Islands. Nobody cares. And of course, Joffrey, still sitting on the throne, being a little shit. Also across the sea, Daenerys Targaryen, daughter of the Mad King, has been sold to a Dothraki warlord named Khal Drogo. First she's assaulted, then she falls in love, Stockholm Syndrome. Then her husband dies from an infected wound because she trusted a witch. Dany walks into a funeral pyre with 3 petrified dragon eggs and emerges unburned with 3 baby dragons. She decides to become queen of everything. The result? Robb is a great commander, but a dumb flunky. He goes to apologize to Lord Frey, promising that his uncle Edmure will marry one of Frey's daughters. Frey, insulted but hungry for a match, agrees to a peace and throws a feast. That feast becomes the Red Wedding. Guests close the doors. Music plays. Then the massacre begins. Robb's pregnant wife is stabbed in the belly. His mother Catelyn has her throat slit. And Robb himself is shot with crossbows and stabbed. Throats cut at the dinner table. The Lannisters send their regards. Second lesson of Game of Thrones. Marriage promises are sacred. Break one and your whole family gets slaughtered. After the Red Wedding, House Stark is practically destroyed. The kids are scattered. Sansa, a hostage in King's Landing, forced to marry the dwarf Tyrion, but at least he's nice. She learns to play the game. Arya wandering the countryside, getting captured, escaping, and eventually sailing to Braavos to become a faceless assassin ninja. Bran goes beyond the wall to find the 3-eyed raven and learn magic. He eats a lot of weird paste. Rickon runs in a straight line later. You know the meme. In King's Landing, the Purple Wedding happens. The marriage of King Joffrey to the beautiful Margaery Tyrell. Joffrey chokes on poisoned wine at the feast and dies horribly in his mother's arms. Everyone blames Tyrion because who else? But it was actually Margaery's grandmother Olenna Tyrell who poisoned him to get a more manageable king on the throne. She's the sassiest old lady in Westeros. Tyrion is put on trial. His beloved ex-prostitute, Shae, gives false testimony, and he's sentenced to death. Jaime, remembering that Tyrion is his favorite brother, helps him escape. Before fleeing, Tyrion sneaks into his father Tywin's chambers and finds Shae in his bed. He strangles her, then shoots Tywin with a crossbow while he sits on the toilet. I've been on trial for being a dwarf my whole life, he says. Pow. Third lesson of Game of Thrones. Everyone hates their dad. While humans kill each other over a chair, a real threat awakens in the north. White Walkers ice zombies who want to destroy all life. Their king is the Night King, who looks like he has a permanent migraine. They ride dead polar bears and spiders. It's metal as hell. Jon Snow, Ned Stark's bastard, joins the Night's Watch and tries to convince everyone that zombies are real. No one believes him. He falls in love with a wildling girl named Ygritte. She keeps saying you know nothing. Jon Snow, which is very true. He betrays his order, gets shot with arrows, survives, and then gets stabbed to death by his own brothers for treason. But this is Game of Thrones. No one really dies. A red priestess, the same one who birthed shadows, resurrects Jon. Meanwhile, Daenerys flies around on dragons, frees slaves, builds an army of unsullied eunuchs and Dothraki screamers, and realizes being a ruler is boring. She also loses one dragon to the Night King, who turns it into an ice dragon. Arya becomes a faceless assassin and wipes out House Frey for the Red Wedding. She bakes Walder Frey's sons into a pie. Lovely. Bran becomes the 3-eyed raven and sees the past. He discovers Jon's birth secret. Jon isn't a bastard. He's the true heir to the Iron Throne. His parents were Rhaegar Targaryen, Daenerys' brother, and Lyanna Stark, Ned's sister. So Jon and Daenerys are aunt and nephew. They later hook up. Because of course. Fourth lesson of Game of Thrones. Nothing brings people together like an incestuous relationship. And here we are, the finale. The one that made millions of fans sign a petition for a remake. Season 8 is so rushed that characters teleport across continents and forget their personalities. Season 8 in 3 acts. 1. Daenerys arrives in Westeros. She has 3 dragons, a huge army, and a goddess complex. She should ally with Jon to fight the White Walkers. Problem: no one loves her, but everyone loves Jon. She gets jealous. Also, she burns the Tarlys alive for not bending the knee, which is not a good look. 2. The Battle of Winterfell, the Long Night. The biggest battle in history. Everyone gathers at Winterfell, prepares for the apocalypse. The episode is so dark you can't see anything. The Dothraki charge with flaming swords and get extinct in 30 seconds. Then, suddenly, out of the darkness jumps Arya Stark. Does a cool flip, she literally flies out of nowhere, and stab. Kills the Night King with a dagger. The main villain, feared for 8 seasons, dies at the hands of a teenage girl with a side quest. All the Winter and Song of Ice and Fire stuff becomes meaningless. The White Walkers vanish in 1 minute. Jon Snow does nothing except scream at a dragon. 3. Daenerys goes mad. After defeating the dead, Daenerys decides to liberate King's Landing. Instead, she just burns the whole city to ash. Women, children, old people all die in the fire. The bells ring for surrender, but she keeps burning. Why? Because she's mad now. This is the show's explanation. Jon Snow watches in horror, realizing his own girlfriend has become a tyrant. The finale. Jon Snow stabs Daenerys in the throne room. She dies in his arms. Her last dragon Drogon arrives, sniffs her body, then melts the Iron Throne. Good riddance, it was ugly anyway, and flies away with her corpse. Because somehow the dragon understands metaphor. All the lords gather for a council to choose a new king. Tyrion, who's in prison for treason, gives a speech about stories. They make Bran the king. The guy who spent the entire series in a wheelchair staring creepily. Who said I can never be lord of anything earlier. He becomes king because he has the best story. Yes, really. Bran Stark becomes king of the 6 kingdoms. The North secedes and becomes independent under Sansa. Jon Snow is punished for killing his aunt and is sent back to the Night's Watch. At the edge of the world, he gets to pet his wolf ghost. That's his happy ending. Final lesson of Game of Thrones. When you have dragons, an army, and a throne claim, you still lose to the guy with the best story. And that's how the most popular show of the decade ended. Millions of characters died for nothing. The villain was killed not by heroes, but by a random flip. The Iron Throne was melted because it was uncomfortable. Seasons of prophecies about Azor Ahai and the prince that was promised. Ignored. Jon's Targaryen heritage. Pointless. Dany's descent into madness. Rushed over 2 episodes. The show spent years teaching us that actions have consequences, that no one is safe, that politics is brutal. Then it ended with a Disney-style council where everyone hugged and chose the weirdest kid as king. The main takeaway: don't try to understand Game of Thrones logic. Just drink wine, laugh at memes, and be glad you weren't born in Westeros. And never, ever trust a show with more than 4 main characters. Now smash that like button if you think dragons should have ruled the world. And subscribe for more absurd recaps.